Today I will be ranking what are, in my opinion, the best classes to solo in the Elder Scrolls Online. This is purely based on my opinion and my experience with soloing veteran dungeons, so if you have made any other experiences, feel free to share your view in the comments, and with that being said, let's get straight into it. Now, the number 6 spot on my list goes to the Nightblade. Now, honestly, the Nightblade doesn't really have much going for it when it comes to soloing. They don't have any ultimate that would be useful in a solo situation, so you are probably forced to run something like Swarming Scion from the Vampire skill line. They do have really easy access to Empower as well as some damage buffs with Minor Vulnerability and Berserk from the Ambush skill, but everything else is just kind of lackluster. Their healing over time is really just not on par with the other classes. Something like Dark Cloak, even though it gives you major resolve as well from their passives, really just doesn't cut it with its short duration, and even adding Leeching Strikes to that is not gonna give you as much healing as you can get on other classes. Also, their Major Breach skill, Reaper's Mark, is just not gonna cut it in a solo situation because it can only be applied to one enemy, so you're probably gonna have to run Razor Caltrops instead, and other than that, the class simply doesn't really have anything going for it when it comes to soloing. In position number 5 on this list is gonna be the Necromancer. Now, the Necromancer has an ultimate that is pretty much almost the same as Blood Scion from the Vampire skill line, so yeah, I guess you can use either of those. They do have a nice spammable ability with Ruinous Scythe, so if you want to go with a spammable ability and high offensive stats, then the Scythe can definitely be a great skill. Also, they do have nice utility with Beckoning Armor, so your armor skill is also going to pull in ranged enemies, which is really useful. And they do also have nice access to the Empower buff, but it's only for a short duration, which is lacking in comparison to other classes. Their skill for Major Breach is quite nice, simply because it doesn't cost stamina like Razor Caltrops, and you can pay for it using Magicka instead. But their healing over time is kind of lacking, with Intensive Mender being the best option here, and that has quite a short duration, and the healing isn't that amazing, so overall, Necromancer is just coming in at 5th place on this tier list. Moving on to position number 4, where we have the Sorcerer. Now, the Sorcerer has an ultimate that is a little bit better, or at least a little bit more unique, which is Suppression Field, giving you nice protection from AoE abilities, so against certain bosses. This can be really useful. It also helps when you're dealing with a lot of trash mobs and you want to stun them all at once. The Sorcerer also has really nice access to self-heals. If you're going for a defensive and max health build, then you can use the Unstable Clanfarer, and if you're going with offensive stats and a spammable ability, you can use the Twilight Matriarch. Both of those deal some nice damage, and they also heal yourself for a ton. Also, the Sorcerer has a really unique playstyle opportunity because it has a shield which is really strong, Hardened Ward, which also scales off your max Magicka, which means you don't have to run that much max health to be able to play Sorcerer effectively in a solo situation. Other than that, they have nice utility with Bound Aegis, giving you some block mitigation whenever you need it and some resistances passively. And also Dark Deal can be a really nice ability to refresh your stamina after you have dodge rolled a lot and you need to refill it. If you're going the offensive route and want to use a spammable ability with Sorcerer, Crystal Weapon may be a good option, as it also provides passive self-healing from the Blood Magic passive. This self-healing is also assisted by Critical Surge, which is honestly an amazing skill. So I would say that Sorcerer has okay healing over time, but it is lacking the Empower buff in comparison to other classes, and also doesn't have a good way to deal with high range enemies. One more thing to add about the Sorcerer is the Amplitude passive, which is kind of nice because you deal more damage against enemies when they have high health. And if you're using an offensive build and you use something like Bloodthirsty, then this can help even out your damage and yeah, just help you deal more damage all the time. Now, coming in at position number 3 on my solo tier list is the Warden class. Warden has a truly amazing ultimate for soloing, which is Enchanted Forest. It barely costs any ultimate, it even restores some when you cast it, and it provides a really good heal over time for you over 6 seconds, as well as a burst heal. Also, Warden is the only class on this list which actually has access to both major and minor breach in an AoE fashion, with Deep Fissure, making you able to just deal more damage. Also, their weapon and spell damage buff skill, Bull Netch, provides very nice resource recovery, but honestly the main strength of the Warden class is its self-healing. With Leeching Vines, Lotus Blossom, you have a really strong heal over time combination. This is getting increased even more by the Accelerated Growth passive, which is really strong, giving you access to major mending whenever you get low on health. And Polar Wind is just an amazing spammable burst heal. Their armor buff is okay, it has a good duration and also provides minor protection in addition. And finally, with Shimmering Shield, the Warden also has a great way to deal with ranged enemies and some bosses that use a lot of projectiles. Now closing in on the top 2 classes on this tier list. In spot number 2 we have the Templar. Now, the Templar has a good ultimate with Practice Incantation, which heals you for a lot and also doesn't cost that much ultimate. The only downside of it is that you can't cast anything else while you're channeling it, but it's really nice to sustain some high damage phases from certain bosses. Arguably, the biggest upside from the Templar is Puncturing Sweep, one of the most famous spammables in this game, and it's honestly just amazing in solo situations as well, dealing area of effect damage and also healing you for a percentage of the damage dealt. And with the Spear Wall passive, this skill also gives you minor protection, making it just a super loaded and one might even say overpowered skill. Now, Templars also have easy access to the Off Balance debuff, which is fairly unique compared to other classes, with Toppling Charge, which is also a nice mobility skill. Their major weapon and spell damage buff ability is honestly kind of lackluster, with Vampire's Bane only dealing a small amount of dot damage, so you can honestly just replace this with Degeneration from the major skill line, which every class has access to, or Rally from the two-handed skill line. But on the defensive side, Templar is looking really strong with self-heals such as Purifying Light, which also deals amazing damage, Honor the Dead as a really strong spammable burst heal, and Restoring Focus for your heal over time needs. Those heals actually get buffed quite a lot from the Templar passives as well, with the Mending passive giving you up to 12% increased healing when you're low on health, as well as Sacred Ground providing you with minor mending for another 8% healing done. They also have one of the strongest health-based shields in the game with Radiant Ward, which is honestly an amazing ability, and they have really easy access to Empower with Solar Barrage, making it one of the best classes to use heavy attack builds on. And with all of that being said, this only leaves one class to be the #1 spot on my solo tier list, which is the Dragonknight. We have Corrosive Armor as one of the best ultimates in the game for soloing, making you basically unkillable for 10 seconds, supported by the Battle Roar passive, restoring almost all of your resources by simply activating the ultimate. The Dragonknight also has the best health-based shield in the game with Hardened Armor, not only providing you this amazing shield, but even also providing you with your major armor buff, as well as dealing some damage to enemies around you whenever they attack you, making this just the best skill ever for soloing, honestly. They also have Unrelenting Grip, which is the chain that pulls enemies into you so you can group them up, making you really good at dealing with ranged enemies. Other classes have access to Silver Leash from the Undaunted skill line, which has a very similar effect, but the benefit of Unrelenting Grip is that it is a magicka costing ability, meaning you don't have to waste your stamina to cast it. And in addition to this, if you're dealing with ranged enemies and especially some bosses that have really hard-hitting projectiles, Dragonfire Scale is just one of the best abilities in the game as well, making you able to absorb a ton of damage from ranged projectile attacks. The Dragonknight also has the best spammable burst heal in the game with Coagulating Blood, healing you even more if you're low on health. The Dragonknight also has really strong self-healing over time with skills like Burning Embers, Cauterize and Cinder Storm, which all get benefited from the Burning Heart passive, increasing your healing by 12% passively just by having your Hardened Armor active. The Dragonknight is also the best class in the game for heavy attack builds because of Molten Armaments, not even giving you Empower, but instead increasing your damage with heavy attacks by a whole 50% for its duration, while also providing you with your major weapon and spell damage buffs. So this ability is just amazing. You can combine it with an armor set or maybe a major skilled skill with the major skilled passive giving you Empower as well, and then you will just deal huge damage with your heavy attacks. On top of all this, the Dragonknight also has access to some other really strong passives like Iron Skin, increasing the amount of damage you can block, as well as Elder Dragon, increasing the range of your melee attacks, which can honestly be a really nice buff in some situations. The only thing that's kind of mediocre about the Dragonknight is their Major Breach skill. I mean, at least they have an AoE Major Breach skill in comparison to some other classes, but yeah, it's not that much better than Razor Caltrops, but you might want to use it anyways if you're playing a melee build, but if you're playing a ranged build, you probably just want to use Razor Caltrops instead. And yeah, that has been it for my solo classes tier list. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and if you disagree with me or even if you agree with me, let me know down in the comments. Let me know your experiences with soloing dungeons and let me know which classes you prefer to do your solo runs on. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you so much for the support you have been giving to my channel in the recent days. I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and goodbye.